Hello, welcome. My name is Ken Lewicki of channelinginc.com. It's such a pleasure having you here today, and I welcome you all to the Ask Ken Show. Today we're going to have a fun day. Lots of great questions have come in. So, if you're watching this is the Ask Ken Show. The way it works is that if you see this live broadcasting, then go ahead and feel free to type in any. So, first of all, say hi. Give your name, a shout out wherever you're from. And second thing is, feel free to ask any questions about spirituality, and I will live channel the answers here on the air. So, yeah. Let's start with our first question. Let's jump right into it. Our first question is: what are some different ways that I can channel my spirit guides in my everyday life? And I seem to have many spirit guides who help me with the same area of my life. Do I have spirit guides who help me with the other areas as well? And the answer is yes. So let's just talk a little bit about channeling for a bit. When we die and we cross over, we go to the astral realm to be with our soul family. And while we're incarnated, certain members of our soul family help and assist us. And these are our spirit guides. And the cool thing is way back in the day when I first started teaching people how to channel, they didn't have the technology that they have now. Now we could set up highly sensitive camera systems and literally capture your spirit guides on camera, which excites me as an IT person or a former IT person. So, what's most people that I've worked with over the years have somewhere between 3 to 5 spirit guides, and each spirit guide helps in a different way, different capacity, different area of a person's life. And they are people like you and I in non-physical form. Sometimes they can be ancestors, oftentimes they're not. Sometimes they could be loved ones, oftentimes they're not. Oftentimes they're people um, from other like past lives and things like that. So, what I recommend with my students they do is they try to get to feel the different energy signatures of each different spirit guide and get to know who they are on an individual basis as people. And the reason why is because you want to, instead of just saying, oh, spirit told me this or spirit told me that, well, which one? Which spirit guide? And also make sure that you're channeling safe and in the light, and your spirit guides are always of the light, always good and healthy for you to channel. So, let's say, for example, this person has 4 spirit guides. Okay, so they have 4 of them. Now, the question is, um, how many areas of our life do we have? I don't know, 50, 60, 80, 100, something like that, like a lot, lots of different areas. How many spirit guides do we have? Let's say 3 to 5. So, that means one spirit guide would help in more than one area. So don't think it's just one spirit guide, one area, one another spirit guide, another area. They often help in many ways, many capacities, many areas of your life. Now, also, your spirit guides can help in, let's say, for example, you have a situation going on at work. Okay, so your career guide might come in and help you with that. But then also because it's work, and oftentimes work includes relationships, your relationship spirit guide might come and also assist, and they might tag team and help out like both together on this one area of your life that you're struggling with and need help with. So that's an example of where our spirit guides help not just in one area but many areas. And yeah, and then also over time, though, it's really important to try to get to know the like the personality traits and the quirks and the personality dynamics of a spirit guide. So, for example, one spirit guide might be like really fun and goofy and silly and all that at one time, but that another time it's still the same spirit guide, so it's the same soul, but they might be more serious, and then another time they might be more introspective, just like an incarnated human. So it's the same human, but they might have different like a range of personality traits for that one human. And then another spirit guide, so it's a totally different soul, but that soul has a whole range of different personality traits as well, but they have an overall general, characteristics about them. Some might be charismatic, some might be more fun and goofy, but even like one that's fun and goofy could still be serious at times. It's like, okay, now it's time to buckle down and get some work done, stuff like that, even though it's the same guide. So yeah, this is an example of how we want to get to know our spirit guides. And what I do recommend, what I like to do is every morning when I wake up in the morning, I do three things. One is I tell myself I love me and self love. The second thing I do is I feel how grateful I am for everything that I possibly can. And then the third thing that I do is I connect connect with my spirit guides and I see who's around me and I see which guide it is. And the reason why I do this is because I want to fellowship with my spirit guides and get to know them as people. And of course, to receive any messages to start my day. And it's more likely that I will continue to channel throughout the day, like not just a little bit, but the entire day. I'm more likely to do that if I start first thing in the morning. But also, what happens is as you do this on a regular basis, connect with your spirit guides, whether it's first thing in the morning or anytime during the day, but as long as it's a regular daily practice, which is the best, you get to know your spirit guides on a more deeper, intimate level. And this is important because as you're going along your spiritual journey and your spiritual awakening, you want to, whenever stuff comes up in your life, you want to get to know them on a very personal, intricate basis, intimate basis, because then when you do receive messages from them, you know more where they're coming from, why they're coming from this perspective, because you know them really well. Um, so yeah, that's a little some pro tips. If you are watching this and you would like to take notes, feel free to do that. So that's a couple tips that I would recommend is yeah, definitely get to know them on a more personal, intimate basis. Um, okay, let's move on to our next question. Do I always get yeses and nos from my spirit guides in the same way? Ooh, this is a really big question. So the answer is no. You get different yeses and nos from spirit guides in different ways. So just like to elaborate on what I was talking about, how each spirit guide has its own unique energy signature. Okay. Um, so the same thing of how they give a yes or no, and this is really important. I had a client last week where she was like, "Oh, I always get." Green as a yes, green as a yes, and then red as a no, and something like that. And that's what I was taught. I was taught that by someone. If you get a green, you get a yes. You get a green, red, it's a no. And she had a guide who came in, a spirit guide, and the guide was giving her a totally different way of getting a yes. And I'm tuning in, and I'm like, well, why does she keep trying to go to green? And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then I said, okay, I know you're saying green, but is there a different way that you're getting a yes? And she goes, oh, I'm actually getting like more like a cobalt or a different kind of color, like slightly. And I go, yeah. And I'm like, so where did you get the green from? She's like, oh, that's just the way I was taught to do it. I'm like, "Oh, okay, but that's fine. It might have been okay for another guy." And then later on, her another guide came in, and it was a green because that was what like that's how she, and that guide literally, legitimately was giving her a green. But I also want you to, if you're when you're learning to channel, what I realize is that there's many different ways that our spirit guides can give us a yes or a no. So, for example, it might be a color, but they also you might notice them like nodding their head, like kind of like a yes, or you might notice them like shaking their head, like a no, or you might notice them in like a physical, actual feeling in your body in a certain place, and then okay, well, what does that feeling feel like? Where in the physical body do you feel the yes? And then what does that yes feel like? And then like what's that sensation? And then another spirit guide might give you a yes in the physical body, but maybe it's a different location, or maybe it's the same location, but maybe probably different. And then what does that other yes feel like from this other spirit guide? And then when you get a no, what does that feel like from that first spirit guide? And when you get a no from the other spirit guide, what does that feel like? And they'll feel totally different. And that's really actually quite advanced channeling, what I'm teaching. But I'm teaching you this now because again, if you're sitting here, try to write that down. Try to feel the different yeses and nos from the different spirit guides, because that's also part of their energy signature component. So when I talk about energy signature, at first, when I first started teaching people how to channel over 20 years ago, I would say, oh, what's their energy signature like? And I thought it was just one thing. But then over time, I started to realize that their energy signature is made up of many subcomponents. And this is really important to know because like different personality traits, the way that they present themselves, the way that they feel, the way that their presence feels. So you can like put your hand in and out of them physically. And there's the highly sensitive camera systems that can actually capture you putting your hand in and out of the spirit guide. And you're going to notice that when you do that with this one guide, it's going to feel a certain way. With another guide, it's going to feel a different way. And again, that's because they have different energy signatures about them. And then also how their presence feels. Like how does their presence feel? Like, do you feel more cold, or do you feel more tingly, or do you feel more like a vast space around you, or more etheric and lighter, or more grounded? Like that's all different energy signature traits that each individual spirit guide can have. And then when you get to feel the yeses and nos, like you might feel one spirit guide might be like, oh, it's a yes, and you all of a sudden feel their presence really close. And then when it's a no, all of a sudden you feel their presence like step back. Okay, so that's an example of a different kind. A different spirit guide might do that, whereas another spirit guide might keep the same distance, but give you a yes, and you feel the tingling or whatever in there, and then give you a no, but all of a sudden it's a void or it's an absent, but they're still in the same spot, same presence. Okay, so these are a bunch of examples of how you can actually get yeses and nos from your spirit guides. But what I don't want you to do is create any preconceived notions about how you get a yes or no from a spirit guide. Part of being a channeler, especially a more advanced channeler, is getting yourself out of the way, trying to be like a clear channeler, trying to get not influence the answer. So when you are connecting with the spirit guide, just try to be open. Okay, what does this spirit guide feel like? What is their energy signature? I have no idea what it is, so I'm just going in totally open. When I feel like, show me a yes. Ask your spirit guide that. Show me a yes. What does a yes feel like? What do I see? What do I hear? Do I hear the audible, the audio yes? Do I feel it in my body? If so, what is it? And then do that for another spirit guide. What is it? Show me a yes. And then you might, get a color, you might get a nod, or you might get some sort of like this, or you might get a no, might be like that, like and then what does a yes feel like in your body, or do you get an audible yes? And what does their voice sound like? Does it sound different from each other? Like all those are really telltale signs of how to get yeses and nos from your spirit guides, because as we're going along our spiritual journey and our spiritual awakening, especially our channeling practice, we want to definitely be able to get yeses and nos. And then eventually what we want to do is we want to transition the yeses and nos to asking more open-ended questions. So more like, again, if you're writing this down, write that down, open-ended questions with your spirit guides as much as possible. So this is the way that I try to channel most of the time. Instead of saying, are you a male? Yes or no. Are you a female? Yes or no. You ask, well, what gender are you? And then instead of asking, like, are you here to help me with career? Are you here to help me with work? Are you here to help me with finances? Are you here to help me with, those are closed-ended questions, yes or no's. Instead, ask, what area of my life are you here to help me with? And then they tell you the area instead of saying, okay, is it, let's say it's work or career. Is it to talk to me about my job? Yes or no? Again, that's closed-ended questions. But then instead, you want to ask, okay, what do you want to tell me about my career? And that's an open-ended question. Okay, so that's what we want to do is try to transition into open-ended questions, and just have fun with it. Like keep channeling is meant to be fun. Spirituality is meant to be fun, and so if you're not getting answers all like really super clear at the beginning, just keep practicing, keep doing your healing and clearing. That will keep it easier for you as you're going through your progress, and you'll be able to get more clear answers because you don't have all that junk and other stuff in the way hindering your channeling abilities. So this is the Ask Ken show. Welcome. If you're watching, say your name and where you're from. I will give you a shout out. Also, feel free to ask any questions about spirituality, and I will live channel the answers here on the air. And I'd like to say hi to Jessie. She's tuning in from Bali. Thank you. Welcome, Jessie. And we have Shelly, which is tuning in. I believe she's from Canada. I think it's Alberta. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So great having you all here. And then we have a whole bunch of people on Instagram joining, and it would be hard for me to say all the handles. Marcia and Lori and Miko and Mai Mai. And so, welcome everyone. Yeah, feel free to ask any questions about spirituality. We have lots of good questions that we can go to. So, I'm going to go to the next one. Do um, When giving a reading, how do we know which of their spirit guides to channel? Okay, so that's a good question. This is definitely more advanced. I do teach how to give spirit guide readings, mediumship, and also to like loved ones, how to channel loved ones. Um, and it's really beautiful work. It's really important work. It's something that's really close to my heart when you can channel someone else's spirit guides and then give direction and guidance to the other individual from their spirit guides, and it's a direct. Oh, Marcia said hello. It's a direct message from. Um, yeah, so it's really cool. A direct message from their guide. Um, and also, I do also teach my students how to do past life readings, how to do ancestral readings, and on and on and on. There's soul readings. I could just keep going. Um, and animal spirit guide readings, a whole bunch of more. Dream interpretation is another one. Really cool stuff. So what we want to do is when we start our channeling journey, I suggest that we get really good at working with our own spirit guides first. It does mean if you're already doing spirit guide readings and all that, keep doing that. So I want to just kind of give a disclaimer or clarify something here. When all our life we've been channeling, it's impossible. Like all 7, 8 billion people, whatever on this planet, have been channeling since childhood. Everybody channels. Um, and a lot of us don't realize that we channel. So what I help my students do is I help them do two things. One is to be aware and cognizant and aware of what they've been doing their entire life. The second thing I do is I help them to increase their channeling abilities to super great heights so they can do it at really advanced levels. And one of the first places I start is to teach them how to know their spirit guide team, but also how to channel their own individual spirit guides at much more advanced levels. Because when you start to work with other people's spirit guides, then you want to know who you're working with. You don't have to, but it just really helps. And let me clarify that as well, is because have you ever you know, been living your life and then all of a sudden like you're with somebody and they, whether it's like on a telephone or in person or a video call or whatever it might be, and then they give you this like really profound message and they're like, and you're like, wow, that's exactly what I needed to hear. Like, thank you for telling me that. How did you know to say this to me? And they're like, I don't know. It just kind of came to me. Like, I don't know. I had to say it. Most likely that's because they were channeling your spirit guide through them to you. Okay. And then another example might be like maybe you're talking with somebody and then all of a sudden you feel like this need or urge to tell them something and you tell them something and they just stop and they look at you and they're like, holy smokes, that's like so profound. Like I was just thinking that, or I was just feeling that, and I so needed to hear that right now. Like, thank you for telling me that. Well, where did that come from? And you're like, I don't know. It just sort of came to me. Most likely, that's a situation where you were channeling their spirit guide. So I'm saying this because we've done this all our life. We've given other people spirit guide readings, channeled their spirit guide through us to them. They've done it back to us where they've channeled our spirit guide. One of my mentors way back in the day, he'd say, Ken, sometimes God has skin on him. You know, and I love that because he's like, sometimes our spirit guides work through people that are alive and they pass messages through other people to us. And that's really cool. So know that you've been already doing this. So what we want to do as we progress in our channeling journey is we want to get to know our spirit guides. And so what I do is, and you can do this now if you're watching, is I'll ask all my spirit guides to temporarily step far back. And then the reason I do that is because I want to have a clean slate, no spirit guides around me, so I can sit in the spiritual silence. That's what I call it. It's a term I created, calling sit in your spiritual silence. And then you sit in the spiritual silence for a while, and you allow yourself to just feel the difference, like what it's like to have no spirit guides around you. And then, so I'm actually doing it right now, here live on the air. And then after you sat in the spiritual silence for a moment, just go ahead and, without deciding who, invite one spirit guide to come forward. And the reason why I say without deciding who is because your spirit guides communicate with each other in the astral realm, and they know which one's the most important for you to come in. And then you say whichever one of you wants to come in right now, just go ahead and come in. And then once they come in, you feel where they are around you, so where they are physically around you. So where are they? Oh, right here. Okay. And then you lock in on them. Don't let your mind wander, because this is where the source of the information is coming from, this direction. And then increase your connection and start channeling them. Now, again, if we had the highly sensitive camera systems in the setup in your room, the one you might see on like ghost hunter shows and things like that, we'd actually be able to capture your spirit guide physically where they are in this example right here. Actually, I have a spirit guide right here. It's like, no, I'm right here. I'm like, okay. So we'll use this example. So this is all live. I'm channeling live with you if you're watching. And and the reason why you want to know where they are physically around you is so you can lock in on them and then get to know where they are. So if they're behind you, you don't have to turn your head like some weird poltergeist thing. Just know if they're here, that's where they are. So you can just focus on them behind your head, but still be looking straight. And then because you've been practicing getting to know your spirit guides and who they are, most likely the spirit guide who comes in is going to be helping you with um, other like spirit guide readings. So helping you work with others and communicating with their other spirit guides. So the next time you do this, it'll probably most likely be the same spirit guide. And also, having said that, our spirit guides can change from season to season. One might step back, another one might step forward, but that doesn't happen that often. So when we're talking a major shift, like major change or shift in your life, that's when one might switch out, or the amount that you have might change. So it's not like it's every week or anything. So don't assume that you're going to get a new guide every week that helps you with channeling other people's spirit guides. So once you establish connection, a strong connection with your spirit guides, then what you want to do is you want to focus on the other person's spirit guides, the one you're going to do a spirit guide reading for. Now, spirit spirit guides are people, so people have different like they're just eccentric, like they can be different personalities. And so sometimes when you're channeling and checking in on other people's spirit guides, it's those spirit guides aren't necessarily, sometimes the loud ones are like, pick me, I want it. Because you have to remember that on a spiritual level, it's actually very difficult to be a spirit guide. Like they're trying to get that person's attention, and most of the time the person's oblivious, like, hello McFly, anybody home? And they're not paying attention, or they just don't know or have the skills to do it. Or maybe they're like in a triggered state or an anxiety state, and they can't just seem to get clear messages. But it's very rare that a person will be able to get. So when someone like you comes along and you're actually connected, they're like, oh my God, finally we could pass along these messages, a backlog of messages to the person that I'm guiding. And oftentimes a lot of them, their spirit guides come forward wanting to give all these messages that they've been wanting to give for a long time. And then, but you as a practitioner, what you do, so this is a pro tip, you can write this one down. As a practitioner, what you do is you say, okay, wait, stop. Everyone just stop. I'm going to work with my spirit guides and the person and their soul, and figure out which one of you is the most important for that person right now, the person that I'm getting this reading from. And the reason why is because you want to take charge, you want to set boundaries, you're in control. It's your session. You're doing this with the client or with your friend or family member, whoever it is that you're practicing on or working with. And then sometimes it's the person that's coming in most prominently. That's the one you're supposed to channel. Your spirit guide's giving you the yes. Okay, go with that spirit guide. But sometimes it's the person's spirit guide. It's the one of the ones that's quiet, that's off to the side, maybe because that's just the nature of their personality traits. They're just not really that like really aggressive, but that might be the one that's meant to come forward first. So then you tell the other ones, you say, okay, whoa, stop, everyone, stop. Everyone just hold tight for a moment. Everyone just step back for a bit. I want to just connect and get messages from this one spirit guide, which is the quiet one. Let's see what he or she has to say first. And then you work with your spirit guide to get that message and pass that message on to the person that you're giving the reading to. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. That was a really complex That's very advanced channeling. That's like my level 2 curriculum courses that I teach. It's really cool stuff. There's way more to it than that. That's just the foundation. And I could tell you about it, but you won't really know what it's like until you practice this. So do try to practice this. Try to practice it in your everyday life. Try to sit down with a friend and say, "Hey, can I try practicing your spirit guides?" And what I recommend to my students is um, work on channeling your spirit guides and getting to know them and increasing your connection and your connectivity with them and all that stuff as you're practicing these more advanced skills. So don't think it has to be just, no, I can't do this until I do that. And I can only do that. And then eventually one day when I get to this point, like you can practice both. Like I said, we've all been doing these two things, which is channeling our own spirit guides throughout our entire life, but also we've been channeling other people's spirit guides throughout our life as well and passing messages along through us to them. And you can do this. I welcome this. Yay! I love this. This is great stuff. All right. If you're watching, feel free to say hi. I will give you a shout out. This is the Ask Ken show. Also, just go ahead and type in there any questions that you might have about spirituality. And I will live channel the answers live on the air. That was all live channeled. So my spirit guide is still here with me, hanging out. I have another spirit guide behind me right now that helps me with the Ask Ken show while I'm doing it. So I'm channeling that one. This one more comes in when I do spirit guide readings and stuff like that. So that's another pro tip: is always know who's around you as spirit guides. As we're living our life, it doesn't mean that your spirit guides always have messages for you. But let's say, for example, somebody has 4 spirit guides, for example. You might not have all 4 spirit guides with you, but what I can guarantee you is that you always have at least one with you at all times, and they might switch out. So it's not always like the same one, but oftentimes it is. But like a primary spirit guide or something like that usually is full time and they're all the time. And then you have your secondary spirit guides. Most people have one primary, several secondary spirit guides, but you always have at least one, usually 2 or more, that hang out with you. But as you're living your life, be like, oh, let's say you're standing at the grocery store, standing in line at the grocery store, and you're just for curiosity. So again, you can write this down: get curious. That's one of the foundations of channeling, is getting curious. And you're standing at the lineup and you're like, oh, I wonder, who do I have as spirit guides around me right now? And you're like, oh, okay. I have 3 of them. Okay. So you're like, hey, this one, and this one. Okay. And if you want to take it a little bit further, which is kind of fun too, is you can tune into, the person in front of you, like the lineup, so you're not prying or anything. You're not, because again, you're not doing anything unethical or anything like that, but you can also see what other spirits are around you, like other people's as well. So I'm aware of that quite often, where I'm like at an event or just like at a restaurant or a coffee shop or something like that, and I'll notice other people's spirit guides as well. I'm not necessarily channeling them because they're not my spirit guides. But yeah, like just have fun with this. Like as you're in different environments, maybe when you're driving your car. By the way, when you're driving, please do channel. Well, more than welcome to, but also please make sure you keep your eyes open. We don't want any accidents. Also, try it maybe when you're at work. Oh, which spirit guide's around me now? And you might notice that it shifts throughout different parts of the day. Like maybe when you're on lunch break, it's different than early in the morning or later in the afternoon or something like that. Or maybe you're about to have a conversation with somebody, or maybe do a phone call or Zoom call or something like that. You might notice that your spirit guides shift as that happens. All right, let's go to our next question. Do drugs and alcohol make me more vulnerable to psychic attacks? The answer is not always. Of course, this is like, I'm not going to say blanket statements, always yes, always no. Always be careful of people in the spirituality industry who use what's called absolutes, like it's always like this and never like that. Because what I've found with spirituality is there's most of the time there's different shades of gray, or there's exceptions to the rule and things like that. So I just found like what can happen on a physical and physiological level is when somebody does recreational drugs. So if you, by the way, disclaimer, if you're on medication, please keep taking that medication. Talk to your doctor about increasing or decreasing it. But that's not, I'm not talking about those kind of we talk about like recreational drugs or medicines and other kinds of things like that, or things you might do at parties or raves or dances and stuff like that. So those things, what if you think of it like on a spiritual level, let's say for example there's a lost soul. Lost souls, they don't have an energy source because they're not in the astral realm. So they're if you feel into it, like if you check in on a lost soul, you'll notice that they're dull, they're grayed out, they have very little energy about them. So they're oftentimes looking for a host, looking for someone they can latch onto because they need energy. And so let's say there's a rave or a dance or a party, and there's 100 people in there. And let's say out of those 100, there's 80 of them that are on some sort of substance or alcohol, something like that. And one person is really like just wasted. So what are they going to do? If our protection system is nice and strong, when we're healthy and we're clean and we're sober and we eat healthy and exercise and take care of our fitness, physical health and good sleep and all those other good health self-care practices that I recommend. And even if you're not 100% on all those, overall, you're still going to be relatively protected just naturally. Okay. And then so this lost soul is, hovering above looking for a host. Well, it's going to go for an easy target, easy prey. So let's say, one person's really wasted on some sort of substance or whatever it is. What their whole auric field and everything is compromised, and it's not, protecting them. It's all like, you know, uh, glitchy and all sorts of stuff. So that person would be an easy target for that person. And then I've had it so many times where after like an ayahuasca retreat or something like that, or some the person comes to me and they're like, Ken, after this ceremony thing that I did like 3 months ago, I've never been the same. And I don't know, I can't sleep and it's hard for me to function at work and interact with friends, and I can't sleep at night, and I'm just like, oh, and I check them and I'm like, oh my God, you're a mess. And maybe that thing that came in, maybe it's not there anymore, maybe it is, but let's say it's left, but their whole system is still all shot from the the substances that they put into their body at really high levels, whether it's alcohol or other kinds of medicines or drugs and stuff like that that they've taken. And then I have to like try to put them all back together. And then there's also the brain chemistry, and there's all the non-physical aspects. And their chakras are usually shot, and their auric field has holes and tears in it. And then there's their toroid field, and all sorts of other. And their chi might not be up to par, and I could go on and on and on. So I've seen it all. Um, there's Ram Dass. I was watching this video of him, and he said, "Would you rather?" Like someone asked that question in the audience, and I listened to his answer. I thought it was a really brilliant answer, which was, he said, "Would you like about doing drugs or medicines and things like that?" And he said, "Would you rather be with Jesus for a few hours by taking these substances, or would you rather just do it clean and sober and instead become like him?" And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Brilliant way to say it, right? And so for me, I do this all clean and sober, and I don't take any what I call enhancers. Like I've had people say to me, actually just recently, like clients say, well, when I take this substance, I can feel like it just all opens up. And he's like, but then he's like, I don't want to have to do that all the time. I'm like, yeah, obviously, like you don't want to be like at a family dinner and having to take this stuff just so you can be connected during your family dinner. That'd be kind of awkward, right? Stuff like that. Or at work or whatever. So what I want to do, what my goal is, which is where I'm at in my journey, is I want to be able to do this no matter, like, totally sober, totally clean, without any what I call enhancers. And then also in the long run, it's also more sustainable. Plus, I do know people that they go in with the intention of taking these substances, just to help them open up spiritually and awaken spiritually. But I do know quite a few that have actually become addicted to them. So there's also that danger as well. And yeah, addictions can be really devastating to someone's life and their lifestyle and their being a citizen of society. All of a sudden, they can't function in the society because they're addicted to these substances, whatever. So, anyways, my point is try to do all this sober. You can, and there's a much better way to do it. In the ways that I'm teaching, you can do it, and then you'll be able to much surpass even the ways that using these other enhancers can provide. And then also too, there's a danger in taking these substances where sometimes you think you're actually getting spiritual, like enlightened kind of experiences, and really it's not. It's just your brain is being flooded with the endorphins from the chemicals and the neurotransmitters, or like it's like a hose just opening up and just flooding like tons of these neurotransmitters into your brain all at once, and there's this and then it has nothing actually to do with spirituality. It's just your brain is lit up with all that stuff in your brain. So we can get misguided or mismatched messages. I've had so many people tell me, "Oh, during this ayahuasca retreat or this peyote thing or this other ceremony that I did or this other thing, I had witnessed this and experienced that," this so-called spiritual thing, and I'm checking. I'm like, yeah, actually, that was nothing spiritual at all. That was just your brain releasing a ton of chemicals. And sometimes they do have spiritual experiences, and they are legit, but it's really hit and miss. And then also too, I talk about genetics, where we have this thing called predispositions to certain conditions, and not everybody has the same preconditions. Um, but we can have something like a gene switch that is turned off, and then somebody does like a drug or something and then it's turned on. And I actually have a really good friend of mine in high school where all his life he was like an amazing artist, and I knew him from childhood, from really young. And then in high school, I think it was grade 11 or grade 12. Yeah, it was grade 12. It was right before the end. He was about to graduate. He did acid at one of this party, and then all of a sudden kicked in epilepsy, and for the rest of his life he had epilepsy. And he tried going to college. He had to quit college because he kept having these epileptic fits. He couldn't drive anymore. He was on medications. It totally ruined his life, and he would have been fine had he not taken that. But he had a predisposition to the epilepsy gene, and then after taking that, that turned it from an off switch to an on switch. I've also heard of that with schizophrenia and bipolar and things like that. People are fine, and then they take this stuff, and then all of a sudden now they have bipolar or schizophrenia. Like I've seen it all. So it's very dangerous. Just be careful with that. And we have Kevin Hughes broadcasting and he says, miss ya, and such an important message. Thanks. And I know there's a lot of people, my students, who have been supporters for years, who agree with this message, that this is a nice, clean way of living. We have a whole bunch more people that have also joined. We have Coach Galia who's joined, Katrina who's joined, and Life Force with Manita and Nola has joined. So welcome, everyone. If you are watching, just type in a message and say hi, where you're from, and then I will also give you a shout out. So we have Lori, who is saying, is there a certain food that can enhance the images spirit sends? Oh my goodness. um, That's actually a really good question. I've never actually had anyone ask me that question. Is there a certain food that enhances the images spirit sends? It's funny because the immediate answer that I got right away was broccoli. Um, let me back up a bit. I just recommend like eating a super clean, healthy lifestyle, like super clean. And I do like I eat salads all the time and smoothie bowls and fruits and vegetables and legumes and beans and super healthy. And just remember, it's not just about the food; it's also about the drink, the beverages. Like um, I know this for me. Like I used to drink like a 2 liter pop a day, and I gained a ton of weight. And there's like try to stay away from sugars. So that's like processed sugar. Again, fruits and vegetables are fine, stuff like that. But processed sugar is like really toxic for our body. We're not supposed to get that amount of highly concentrated sugar in our body at one shot, one time. So that just like jacks up our blood sugar level like really bad. And I actually went off of processed sugar for 2 whole years straight. And it was really beneficial to me. I've had people where in my channeling level 1 workshop, I go through a whole list of things that can hinder or compromise our connection with our spirit guides, and then a whole list of things that could improve our connection with our spirit guides. And one of them is, I talk about health and diet, but one I point out in particular is sugar, processed sugar, and cutting that out. And I had so many clients after level 1 message me going, Ken, I've been off sugar for 2 weeks, and holy smokes, my channeling abilities just skyrocketed, and it's so much clearer now. And it's like, yeah, see, like sugar does make a big difference, processed sugar. So now I do have sugar once in a while, but it's very small quantities, and I'm very aware of how much I put in my body. So if I do, like something might have a tiny bit of sugar in it, but I rarely put sugar in any of my like foods or drinks or anything like that. And I'm just careful about like there's two aisles in the grocery store. Um, so those of you trying to lose weight, I lost 35 pounds in 3 months, about, I don't know, 20 years ago, something like that, because I was really overweight. I had like major pain where I'd like keel over in pain. And then I finally went to the doctor, and uh, he's like, Ken, you have such high cholesterol, you're going to die at like any time, and like of a stroke or a heart attack because your cholesterol is so high. So I cleaned up my diet, I started exercising, and within 3 months I lost 35 pounds in 3 months, and I've never looked back. I like that was a so those of you watching, if you're I was really, really overweight. So if you're trying to lose weight, try cutting out sugar, or reducing it, but also just eat like a super lean diet. So I do like low carbs and high protein. I don't eat meat. So what I do is I take vegan protein powder and vegan protein bars, stuff like that, to supplement, because I work out and exercise a lot and go to the gym a lot. But just try to eat like super, super, super clean all the time. Another one I'm getting is like walnuts are really good. Is like a lot of the nuts are super good. Um, what else are really good for foods for increasing, like any of the ones. One thing I've been doing recently is Googling, putting in like what are some really good fruit and vegetables that are good for the brain, um, and then also nuts, and or what are some good foods that are good for the brain. I keep getting those are really good for helping with channeling abilities. Another one is getting proper sleep. So this is all kind of stuff like that. Yeah. Oh my God. It's a thank you, Marcia, for the question. It like opens up a whole Pandora's box. Um, yeah, just eat like super healthy. Okay, let's go to our next question. So if you have another question, anyone, just feel free to type it in. We have our car, catharsis joining in from Instagram, and Sylvia Ka. Thank you for joining as well. Okay, let's go to our next question. What is your soul, and what do you do to feel it? Feel your soul struggle. What do you do if you feel your soul struggling and in pain? Ooh. Yeah. So in my early awakening, well, all my childhood, I had really lots of stuff with my soul. So our soul resides in our sternum area. So if you feel in between your heart center and your solar plexus, in between is where your soul resides. It's where your rib bones meet at the bottom. That's what's called the seat of your soul. And yeah, your soul is a really, really important part of you. It's probably the most important component that makes you up as a human. And if you're watching this right now, you can feel into it. So, what I'm going to suggest, if you're doing this while you're watching, is try not to judge it. Try not to judge it as good or bad, right or wrong, and all that other stuff. But instead, just try to evaluate the status of, like, observe your soul right now in this moment. You can breathe into it. If you're watching, you can go ahead and close your eyes and just feel into your soul, and then just feel what your soul feels like. And when I first had my spiritual awakening, I had a lot of pain and struggle with my soul. In my soul, a lot of unhealed wounds, some from this lifetime, some from childhood. And I remember that the first time, like a lot of times, people who have like struggle with their soul might turn to drugs or alcohol or other kind of addictions to try to fill that void in their soul with trying to fill it, but that doesn't work. And so this one lady that I like, a healer that I went to, she checked out my soul, and she's like, holy smokes, Ken, your soul is probably the worst I've ever seen, like anybody, even probably to this day. Like it was just really, really unhealthy. And what my soul really needed, which was really bad, was it actually needs soul retrieval. And so soul retrieval is a really, really important process that not everyone needs it, but almost everybody does. Like my experience has been almost pretty much everybody does at least once. Most people need it more than once. And so, what soul retrieval is sometimes what will happen is when we have a major traumatic event, our soul will become splintered or scattered into different realities. And then, so when we become adults and all that, and then we might turn to drugs or video games or codependency or other things to try to fill that void. And of course, that doesn't work. But we don't know what else to do, so we just keep trying to fill that void. And so, with soul retrieval, it's a process that like shamans and other healers, if they know what they're doing, like skilled ones, they can actually bring back those components of the soul back to this reality. When I first started doing soul retrieval on my clients, I found that like at first I was like, okay, I'm just going to bring all these components of the soul back, soul retrieval. And then I realized over the years, I'm like, well, wait a second, there's more to it than that. And then with channeling, I'm actually channeling. It's this guide who helps me with it. That's why I'm pointing this at. So again, I'm live channeling my spirit guides now. And with channeling, I realized that there's actually much more to it. So with soul retrieval, that's one part of it. But depending on the individual, so again, this is where if there's 10 people lined up and they all need soul retrieval, the process for all 10 of them might be different depending on what they need and what order they need and all that. So some of the things that you could do with soul retrieval are you might need to heal the cavity around the container of where the soul is stored. You might need to heal that part first before you bring the components of the soul back. You need to do soul healing on the soul itself before you bring the components back. You might need to increase the connections of the soul to the other components first. You might need to uh, actually do healing on the components before you bring them back. The different parts of the scattered parts of the soul back. You do healing on them, then bring them back. Or you might need to bring them back and then do healing on the whole soul together, and then do soul healing or healing on the container, and then healing on and increase the connection of the component, the soul to the other aspects that make up the human. So it can be quite complex. Sometimes you need to like wrap it in like a bandage and let it like cocoon and heal, and then those bandages will eventually dissipate and disappear as the soul's going through like a heal, like kind of like a wound that you might wrap around your arm or something like that, and then those bandages dissipate, and then the wound is healthy and healed. So really, it's quite more complex than I thought, than just like retrieving the components. That's what I've learned over the years. And the question is, so what is your soul, and what do I do if I feel my soul struggling and in pain? Okay, so this is important. So if it's really, really bad, obviously go see a shaman or a healer who can help with soul healing and soul retrieval. But what I always recommend with my students, I always want them to feel empowered. So I do teach my students at advanced levels how to do this on themselves, the soul retrieval process. That's in my mastermind classes. You have to qualify for those. The reason why is because we work with angels and other things like that, and how to do it on ourselves and also do it with others. What I recommend, it's really actually powerful, is what I do is I put my hand on my soul every single day, at least once a day, and I tell myself, I love you. And by doing this all the time, like just constantly telling yourself, I love you, it's actually healing your soul on a really beautiful basis. And then you want to also be intentional. So there's multiple ways to do soul healing. And one of them is you want to be intentional about trying to do things that fill your soul with joy. So it could be, if you really love knitting, then do knitting. Like if that fills your heart with joy. It could be maybe it's dancing, and you love dancing, that fills your heart with joy. What I try to do is I try to watch comedy every once in a while, because by laughing, not only does it release those healthy, happy endorphins in our body, but it also helps feed my soul and fill my soul with joy and happiness as well. And then sometimes being with other people that are similar higher vibration that you feel good around, and that also creating those soul connections with you. It could be doing your passion, which could be work related, or it could be um, I knew one guy, he loved to fly helicopters, I don't know, or do scuba diving or something like that. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up, but or skating, or it could be anything. Like there's lots of things, like things that bring you joy. For me, sometimes it's exercising or going for a run and stuff like that. That brings me joy, and so that fills my soul as well. So be very intentional though about like. Definitely what I recommend, if there's one thing I recommend of all of them, it's tell yourself I love you. Put your hand on your soul every day, say I love you to your soul, and over the long run that would probably make the biggest difference. And in addition to do all those other things that I suggested, which is living joy, living your life, trying to do your core genius, which you're really here for. And if you're not sure, that's a process. Your soul can help you with that. Same with your spirit guides can help you with that whole process. So yeah, really, really good question. But just love yourself and send lots of love and happiness and joy to your heart and your soul. Okay, so we have Lori. Lori says hello. Where are you from, Lori? She's tuning in from YouTube. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And then she has a question, is wanting to know if I'm on the right path in my current reality. I'm down with a broken leg, which I know was divinely designed, designated for me to stop and reflect. So sorry to hear about your broken leg, Lori. I don't do necessarily spirit guide readings, but I am actually getting that you are actually on the right path. And I do agree to use this time to do more than reflect, though. Like I'm getting, yes, definitely reflect, but also move forward. Try to take some action. South Carolina, welcome. Okay. Try to take some action during this time when you're down with your leg as to moving your soul's purpose forward. Like, why am I here? There's a really good saying that I heard years ago, which is God can't steer a ship that's not moving. And so same thing with our spirit guides. Like if you think of like a ship in a port, and it's just sitting there, and you could turn the rudder all you want, but it's not going to steer or change the direction of the ship because it's just sitting there. But when the ship is actually moving, and then you change the rudder, then it'll actually change the direction of the ship. And so with our spirit guides, we want to do the same similar kind of concept. Is we want to keep like making progress and steps forward, and just I tell my students, I say, just do the next intuitive thing. Like, what's the next intuitive guided action? So do that, complete it to its finish, and then do the next intuitive guided action, do that to its finish, and then just keep doing that. Now there's some bigger projects that you might need to break down, and you're doing those other bigger projects while you're doing other little things. Maybe like you're working on a website that might take a few weeks to do, or a couple weeks, but in the meantime you're posting on social media throughout those 2 weeks. So you could do both at the same time, but most of the time you want to complete something to its finish, and all that. And then your spirit guides will start to kind of to guide you, oh, more like this, or more like that, in this different direction. Because you're moving that ship, they can steer you along the way, if that makes sense. So really good question. I actually do feel you're on the right track, and sorry to hear about your leg. I'm actually sending some healing to it right now. So yeah, I feel you. Okay, let's go to the next question. This is from Kim. Hi, Kim. Welcome. So I've taken your courses a few years ago, and I noticed sometimes I have no problem connecting with my spirit guides, and then sometimes nothing. Any suggestions for what I seem to be locked out? LOL. Yeah, so I do this thing once a month. It's called Ascension Group Healing. I do that purposely for this reason. So for like several reasons, it's a really inexpensive way just to keep up on your spiritual hygiene. So that's what one of the things that it does is keeps you clean and cleansing on a regular basis, so that it's keeping you from accumulating new stuff along the way, because just life happens. It's kind of like, you have a house, and once a month you might want to dust things off, and it's kind of like that. So that's one thing that it does. It keeps you up on your spiritual hygiene. Another thing that it does is that every time at the monthly Ascension Group Healings, is we go deeper and deeper and deeper into those deeper rooted traumas and the healings on those. And then the third thing it does is it helps with spiritual upgrades. So instead of your spiritual growth going like this, it'll go like this, and it might be a much steeper growth than otherwise would be. So a lot of spiritual upgrades. So outside of that, though, So I always tell people, I say in channeling level one, I go through that list of uh, create what's all the things that I might be doing that might be hindering my connection with my spirit guides, and then make a list of all the things that I could do to improve my connection with my spirit guides. So for you, Kim, I suggest like go back to that list and see, and go back to that basic. So it could be things like sleep. It could be like eating healthy. It could be like maybe I'm stressed and I need to do more stress management kind of work, or maybe I need to go hang out with some friends because I haven't done that in a while, go dancing or do something, freeing and just relax. Maybe I need to exercise. Maybe I need to clean up my diet, or, there's like a gazillion things on those lists that I probably like 20 or 30 for each one that I list out of all the things that could be hindering your connection with your spirit guides, or things that you could do to improve your connection with your spirit guides. So sometimes, like, go back to basics, go back to fundamentals. Maybe try like meditating on a regular basis. And I do recommend silent meditation. And if you want to do the other meditations, that's fine, like guided meditations and things like that. But I do also recommend adding silent meditation as a regular practice, which is basically where you have nothing, no music, no noise, no nothing. It's just sitting in silence, because what that does is it allows you to sit in the like to calm your mind. So think of it like one of those old school televisions with the noise, like the psh. Well, like what you want to do is calm that noise on the screen or in your mind. Psh, just calm that noise, right? So then your spirit guides, you can hear them easier. Another reason why is because what you want to do is you want to calm the waves on the, like if you're like on a boat on a lake, the waves are crashing everywhere, and that's like your mind, and your mind's scattered and all that. And then by like meditating, you learn to just calm your mind, and then you can hear those subtleties and those nuances from your spirit guides a lot easier. Also, to know that you're just going to go through different times and phases of your life. So, for me, for example, meditating, sometimes I can meditate either easier some days than others, and some days it's harder, and that's okay. But I don't stop; I just keep going and coming back. So, same thing with spirit guides. Is sometimes I found that like when I'm connecting with them, there's days that I have a stronger connection with them than others. So it could be that, and just not to sweat it too much. But then also to go back to like the basics of ground center channel using source energy, which is taking a deep breath and then ground and anchor yourself, make sure you're nice and grounded, and then centering yourself, gather all that energy from the past, bring it to the present, gather all that energy from the future, bring it to the present, and then increase your channel, like connect to source energy so that you're connected to that. And I found like that, like I've had people in my 6 month mentorship program, and I keep taking them. Like I had a client yesterday, um, and I had to like take her back to basics and take her back to basics and take her back to basics. And there's another gentleman, that same thing. Like he's gone through all my training, and I go, okay, let's go back to basics, and then we do that for a while, and then we could start getting back into the advanced stuff, and then we go back to basics and get to even more advanced stuff, and then get back to basics, and then go into even more advanced stuff. So, Kim, I would recommend you review your notes and your manual, your handout, and then see like maybe there's something you're like, oh yeah, yeah, I never thought of that. Oh yeah, okay, that's a good one too, and that would really help to increase your connection with your spirit guides. So I feel you. I know what it's like. I've gone through those phases over the 20 years plus years that I've been doing this. And then sometimes you just ride it out. Like sometimes you ride it out. There's also more advanced stuff that I teach about, like making sure that you're clear and your environment's clear of anything external. So you don't have any external influences, any entities or anything like that. So that's beyond the scope of this topic here today at the Ask Ken show. Um, Thank you. Definitely stress is an issue, and I need to meditate more. 100%, says Kim. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I felt the stress right away when I was tuning into that question for you specifically, but I'm just answering generically for the audience. So, we have a question coming in. So, first of all, Avalon, thank you for joining us on Instagram, and Permi. So, she has a question: is when we get financially scammed, what could this mean spiritually, and what to do? Oh, I'm sorry to hear about that. Yeah, there's a lot of financial scams going on right now, and it's unfortunate. So if any of you viewers are watching, just be extra careful. I had one of my clients the other day, the other month. It was a while back, maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm trying to like use my spirit guides to, you know, play the stock market," and he ended up losing a ton of money. And I'm like, so they don't usually, your spirit guides usually don't get too involved in like, gambling and other things like that, or like winning the lotto, stuff like that. But when it comes to things like financial scams, they will give you heads up, because now they're feeling more into like the soul of the person that is, putting this on. And so I had to tell a client this yesterday. I'm like, yes, channel, but also use common sense. Like watch for the red flags, try to watch for the get rich quick schemes and all that other stuff. Um, so what does it mean spiritually? Oh, that's a really complex question for you specifically, Permy. Um, Basically, I'm getting to use it as a growth opportunity to not let it happen again. And I also want people to think like abundance, like wealth, is that you can create this. Even like I had another client who was scammed maybe about 2 years ago now, and he just booked another session with me, and it's been like probably about 5 years or 7 years because he was, but he had messaged me that he had got scammed, but then he just booked a recent session, and he said he's like, Ken, I've made way more abundance than I've lost that 2 years ago. And I'm like, yeah, see, and that's the kind of like, remember, there's try to think of abundance. um, yeah, yeah, that's a really good question. And then again, the healing is part of it. So I also do feel like there's pain and suffering because, like, I know that feeling and emotion of being scammed. It just feels like such a gross kind of feeling inside. If we don't heal that, then that's another trauma, another thing that will add on. So oftentimes when it comes to healing, and I teach this more in like levels 3 and 4, is we get these like traumatic events that happen. Maybe some jerk cuts you off, and then that adds on, and then maybe somebody like bullies you, and then that adds on, and then another thing happens, and that adds on, and then get into an accident, and then that adds on, and then you have this event that happened, and then these traumas keep adding on, accumulating onto each other, and then next thing you know, within 5 years, we have all these, we're wondering why we're more unhealthier 5 years from now than we were 5 years before. So what I recommend to do is whenever this stuff surfaces, try to get on it right away. Don't wait, and try to work on healing and clearing that immediately. And again, there's a gazillion ways you can do it. You can do it with self healing, which please do try that. And at the same time, also be open to seeing other healers to help you with that, because I also recommend seeing other healers because they might have abilities that you don't have, or they might be able to do the healing on you, or see things from a perspective and vantage point that you may not realize that you need healing on. So really, really, really important. Um, yeah, yeah, good question. Good question. So we have a couple more questions. So Nola's thanking me. You're welcome, Nola. Thank you for tuning in, by the way. If you're watching this, just feel free to give your name, where you're from, and if you have any questions about spirituality, just type that in the chat box, and I will live channel the answers. So we have um, Shawane, I believe that's the way to say it, Shawane. Good evening. What does being a shaman with a cure man to you? Or, sorry, what does being a shaman with a cure mean to you? A channeled message, subject, I manifested. I'm not sure what the word like a shaman with a cure means. Like, I don't know what with a cure. Um, from Banff, Alberta. Welcome. Okay, yes, yes, of course. Um, like, I'm always like cautious about staying away from terms like where people, this is a little bit of a side topic, but I'll just say it anyways, is like when people call themselves like a master or a priest or priestess or this or that, or, whatever. I don't do that. You'll never hear me say, I'm a master channeler, or this or that, because I try to, me, as my personal opinion is, as a species, we need to get away from this idolizing and giving our power away to these masters and priests and gurus and all this other stuff. I've seen so many people do it, and it's a very disempowering way. It doesn't mean we can't still honor these people for the great works that they do, but a lot of them are self-proclaimed, masters or gurus and stuff like that. So I try to stay away from those kind of terms, and all that. And then the other thing that it does is it also creates separation. So, oh, this person's a shaman, and that's a box that they're in, and this person's a master, and that's another box that they're put in, and this one's a guru, and this one's a death, and this, and then you're like, okay, well, what am I? And instead of us just being like, okay, we're all human, we all have souls, and we're all in this ascension process together, and let's treat each other equally. It doesn't mean we can't uh, revere and admire and be like an inspiration of the works that other people do, which is great. And I do that too. Like I see people and I'm like, wow, that's cool. Like I've been trained by some amazing people over the decades, and I'm like, okay, that's what I want to work towards and aspire towards. But I don't idolize them. I go up and I shake their hand. I say, hi, my name's Ken. And I treat them like any other human, because they are, but they still do amazing work. So if it's a celebrity, I've met many celebrities over the years and multimillionaires, and they're just people, and amazing people, though they've done great work. So I admire them for that and have the talent that they have. But I'm not going to be like all like, "Whoa, look who's here!" It's some celebrity, and I'm crying and all that. Like they're cool and all that, but I'm not going to. So more what I mean though is. Like a shaman is usually somebody who is um, trained in like the ancestor ways, and that's a very complex question, because now there's so many different kinds of like shamans. It depends which part of the planet. Like I've met shamans from so many like different areas, and then people, they don't call themselves shamans, but like different titles depending on like if you're in Asia and stuff like that. So it's pretty much the same similar kind of thing, but because it's in Asia they call it a different terminology. Or if you're South America, North America, Africa, things like that. So um, a shaman with a cure, I'm not sure what that means. Yeah. Let's go to another question, though. We have Susan. Hey, Susan, where are you from? Say, thank you for joining in. Can you tell me when I will get a full-time job with benefits in my field? Yeah, so I'm not doing readings. This is not the platform to do that. I do have another platform that I do once in a while, where I actually have people who do readings. They'll come onto my show, like my students and stuff like that. So for you, oh, okay. Just a real quick suggestion for you, Susan. What I do suggest is try different fields, like slightly different ones. So like this is a field that you're in, but try different subfields is what I keep getting, and be open to branching out, and then tailoring your resume to those subfields is going to be really important for you. And just like when I used to work for employment services, the government, I used to teach students how to get jobs, and I tell them, I say, go out there and get 100 no's as fast as you can. Like get 100, and they're what? Get no's? I'm like, yeah, not just a few no's, like 100 no's. And I say the reason why is because I could almost guarantee by the time you get to the 100th no, before then, you'll most likely get a job. But too many people, they just don't put out enough quantity. But I also recommend about like like quantity as well. So if you put out like 10 resumes and you're not getting any answers back, most likely there's something wrong with your resume. You should be getting at least 2 to 3 answers back out of 10 resumes is about the average. So if you put out 10 or 20 and you haven't had any response, or maybe only one, maybe get your resume professionally looked at. There's a lot of free government agencies out there that will do it for free, so there's no cost. And the reason why is these governments, which is where the department I used to work in, is they want their citizens to be employed, because when they're employed, then they're making taxes and it's good for everybody. So they offer these free resume services, and more than just resume, they interview techniques and workshop, any kind of a whole bunch of different kind of workshops you can look at on employment related. And that's all the department I used to see. I used to work over. So we have another question from Shawane. I think that's how to say it. Are you familiar with seers? Yeah. Okay. So seers, there's a few answers in that. A seer is basically like a prophet, like somebody who is able to see into the future, future-based, psychic, stuff like that. Um, and there's more to it than that, but that's basically the gist of it. And oftentimes they will use their clairvoyant, hence the term seer. So if you know and are familiar with the clairs, there's clairvoyant, which is clear seeing, clairaudient, clear hearing, clairsentient, which is clear feeling and touch and all that, and then clairalience, smell, clairgustance, taste, and then the claircognizant. So oftentimes seers, they will see, like, you'll have like a crystal ball, and they will be scrying into the crystal ball, and they'll see your future and tell you about your future. You don't need a crystal ball to do this, by the way. So the purpose of these tools, like a candle, so I have a candle here, a candle and things like that. The purpose of this is to allow your body. So when you stare into a candle, for example, so it's still called scrying. Scrying is the fancy word for this, but it could be many things. Some people say if you stare into like tea leaves or a well or like water or something like that, like there's lots of ways to do scrying. So basically the purpose of scrying is to go into, like, almost like when you're scrying and you're looking into the candle flame or the crystal ball or whatever it is, you almost go into this like kind of like trance state where your mind like loses itself. And because you go into this like where you almost like lose your mind because you're focused and fixed on this one particular point, then it's easier for your spirit guides or the other person's spirit guides, or for you to tap into like a future timeline, for that to come through to you because you're in this like trance state. So that's where oftentimes when people talk about seers, they'll have a picture of them with a crystal ball and stuff like that. So your spirit guides, I went through a phase where my guides were guiding me to actually do that for several months. And I did. I would use a candle flame to do that. And I think that's fine. The only caution that I have around that is to not get like where you need a tool, because I want all my students to be able to channel anywhere, anytime, like in any environment, any situation. So let's say you're at work, you're not going to be like, your boss comes up to you and asks you a question, and you're like, oh wait, hold on, and calls you in for a meeting, and then you're like, you pull out your candle or your crystal ball, and then you start, you should be able to channel in any situation. But your spirit guides might want you to practice this for a season, and then when that season's done, they're like, okay, you don't need that anymore. So eventually you want to surpass the tool. You don't need the tool anymore to be able to do that. In this case, the crystal ball or the candle or the well or whatever it is. So the only caution I have about future-based messages is that we have this magical. So this also answers Susan's question. Is um, like we have this magical, amazing thing called free will. So when we're looking for a job, let's say, for example, we're looking for a job and we're on the internet or whatever we are, and then we're looking, and then all of a sudden, we see something and we're like, oh, look at that. And then we get distracted, but we're really meant to just keep looking. And then there was that one more job ad that was going to post up, and you missed that because you got distracted. So, you could have said, no, okay, I see that distraction, but my job right now is to look for a job. So my job is to keep looking. And then you see that, and then now all of a sudden that opportunity comes up that you might have missed. So when it comes to future-based messages, I'm always very cautious with my students. Like if it's near future, very close, it's fine because you're already on that path. For example, like am I meant to work on my website this weekend coming up? And it's maybe like a middle of the week, like a Wednesday or Thursday. And it's like, well, like the weekend's coming up so soon, it's only a few days away. So you're already on this path. Yes, that's future based, but it's near future. So it's because you're already on that path, it's fine. You might get answers, more likely to get answers around. But if you're like, oh, my spirit guides told me in 2 years from now, I'm going to fill up a coliseum full of people and be a public, all this stuff. And that's probably not coming from your spirit guides. That's probably coming from you, because it's so far in the future that during that path, you have free will and you can take all these different directions. So let me give you an example. There's an actual psychic lady that I know. She owns a storefront in a major city. And we sat down together and we were talking, and she's like, Ken, what I do when I get a new person that comes into my storefront and they come in, they sit down, I tell them this right off the bat. I say, when I'm observing right now, what I'm observing is all these like different strings above your head that are there. And the one that I'm giving the reading for is the one that's lit up. However, if you walk out the store and you take a left instead of a right, then everything I've told you has changed because you've now taken a different direction in your life and a new string lights up, right? So that's where we have to be careful about future based questions with our spirit guides. So, what I recommend to do is whenever you're asking your spirit guides questions, try to get into present moment questions. So, for example, instead of like, am I going to get this job, maybe ask, well, what can I do to keep applying for new jobs? Or what can I do to improve my chances of maybe not getting this job because I've already, put resume to this job, but how about future jobs? What can I do? Or is my child going to grow up to be a healthy adult? Okay, instead, what can I do right now to be a healthier parent to help my child grow up to be a healthier adult? Right, like reframe it to present moment questions. Am I going to meet the man of my dreams? Instead, ask, well, what can I do right now to raise my vibration and get healthier and heal, like do healing and clearing? What can I do right now to raise my vibration to be more likely to meet the man of my dreams, for example? And by the way, you have many potential soulmates out there, not just one. So there's lots. Again, think of abundance, stuff like that. So these are all like really valuable tips. Again, if you're watching this, you want to write that down. I do recommend that you write that down. Um, so Permy asked, if a tooth keeps getting broken again and again, is it a sign from the spirit? I'm getting in this case, no. One of the things that I do teach my students in level 1 is what are the signs that your spirit guides will give you that will help you like try to get your attention. And then after we do that exercise, because people come up with all these ideas, it might be insects or butterflies or numbers or repetition or this or that, like all these different ways. And I tell them that not everything has meaning. Like sometimes a paper cut's just a paper cut. Sometimes a broken tooth is just broken tooth. Then you just keep breaking it. Okay, whatever. And like in this case, I'm getting it's nothing to do with spirituality. It's more of a mechanical thing. And sorry to hear that, by the way. I know that sucks. All right, so this is the Ask Ken show. You're welcome, Shawayne. And thank you for joining, Papao. This is the Ask Ken show. I do this once a month, so feel free to tune in next month. And if you have any questions, you can also write in your questions to me, send me a message, and I will add that to the list so you can tune in next week and get your questions answered. This has been so much fun. Feel free to check out my website, channelinginc.com. I do a whole bunch of events on a regular basis. Love you all. Sending blessings to you all. Have a great rest of your week, and we will talk soon.